Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. Now in today's video, for all of you Bara lovers out there, I'm going to be sharing my recipe for something called Bara bake. Now basically this is the same fried bake that we would make at home, except it is fully flavored and loaded with all of the seasonings that you would normally put into Bara. So if you want to see how I put this together, please keep on watching. The first thing we have to do is start by making our dough. So in my bowl, I'm going to go in with my all-purpose flour. Now if you want to see where all of the list of ingredients and measurements are left, they are in the description box right below the video. Click right below the video, everything will be right there for your convenience. Into that flour, I'm going in with my baking powder. I'm also going to go in with a little tiny pinch of yeast. This is definitely optional. I like to add it in sometimes whenever making my bake because it tends to make it softer. And at this point, we need to season it up very well. So I'm going to go in with a good amount of salt. And I'm also going to be going in with a little bit of split peas powder or dhal flour. At this point, we're going to give all of the dried ingredients a quick mix with some clean hands. And at this point, we're going to add in our butter. Whenever I add in butter into my bake, I like to make sure the butter is pretty much melted. Once you get the butter mixed in really well, we're going to add in some more seasonings to make this taste like Bara. So in the bowl, we're going to go in with some turmeric powder or dye. And I'm also going to be going in with some roasted ground cumin or geera. I'm also going to be going in with a little bit of finely chopped spinach. Now this is fresh spinach, but if you only had frozen on hand, you definitely could use that as well. And I'm also going to be adding in some ground seasonings. In my mortar and pestle, I added in some hot wiri peppers, some garlic, as well as a little piece of onion. And I went ahead and I mashed those up together. You can also use a food processor. And now in little increments, I'm going to keep on adding in warm water until I get a nice soft dough. You don't want something that's super sticky. You also don't want something that's too dense. Something in between. This is exactly what I'm looking for. It's no longer sticking to my hands. I'm going to cover it and let it sit for about 15 to 30 minutes and then we're going to get cooking. Now the reason I allowed the dough to rest for about 15 to 30 minutes is because I wanted the gluten to relax a little bit. It's going to make for a softer bake in the end. And being that we added in that yeast, it also allows the yeast to take effect as well and make it even more fluffy. So once you allow the dough to rest for a little bit, you're going to go ahead and flour your surface and you're going to separate it into individual dough balls. Now I'm going to be making round bake today. If you wanted to go ahead and roll it out in one shot and then cut it up into different pieces, you can also do it that way. What I'm going to do now is start to round off all of my bakes. So each of those dough balls, what you're going to want to do is dip it in a little bit of flour and keep on folding it onto itself in between your hands, and then you're going to pinch all of the sides together. What this does is it seals off the dough ball, and when you go ahead and roll it out and you fry the bake, it makes sure that the bake fluffs up perfectly and it gets that nice air pocket on the inside. Now that I've gone ahead and rounded off all of my dough balls or my loyas, I'm going to go ahead and start to roll them out. Now whenever you're making bake, you want to go ahead and roll out a couple of bake at a time, so this way the frying process goes easier, because remember, it takes a quick time to fry. You don't want to make these too thin, because if you roll out the bake too thin, it's not going to puff up and get the air pocket inside. I would also like to mention that this kind of bake is not always going to fluff up on you, just because it has the spinach, it has the garlic and all of those seasonings inside, so all of those things tend to create holes in the bake. So just go ahead and bear with it, try your best, and some of them will fluff up. So I've got my oil preheated to a medium-high heat, so this way the bakes do not take too long to cook, and I'm going to go ahead and drop one in. As soon as you add the bake in, it should start to sizzle right away, it should start to bubble up, and as soon as you add it in and you press on it a couple of times, it'll fluff up beautifully, get a little bit of brownness on the edges, and you can flip it. And once you get the desired brown color on both sides, then you know the bake is done cooking. Remember, these are thin enough, so they're only going to take about 2 minutes to cook in total, not much longer than that. Now I just want to do a little quick disclaimer. If you're seeing some of those particles floating at the bottom of my pot and it's getting a little brown, that's just any excess dried flour that comes off of the bake. It tends to go to the bottom of the pot and start to burn a little bit, so you want to make sure to be mindful of that. This was like the second or third batch of bake that I was frying, so that's why you're seeing all of that at the bottom of my pot. Once the bake is done cooking and it's nice and brown on all sides evenly, it's time to go ahead and drain it and put it onto a bowl or a plate lined with some paper towels to suck up any extra oil. And you're just going to continue the frying process until you finish all of your dough balls. From this recipe, you're going to get about 8 bakes, and that is how quick and simple it is to make Bara bake at home. I hope you all give this recipe a try. This was so delicious. I paired it with some fried salmon and potatoes on the side. I added some tomatoes and some seasonings into that. But you can also eat these plain because they're super flavorful. They have all of those Bara flavors and they're perfect. I hope you all enjoyed this recipe today. Please go ahead and give it a try. Make sure to subscribe to my channel. Click that red subscribe button. Give it a nice big thumbs up as well. Drop your comments down below. Let me know if you try it or if you've heard of this before. And I'll see you all again in my next video. Bye everyone.